The grand chamber of the assembly fell silent as Grand Elder Zorax shuffled to the speaking platform. His ancient blue skin was wrinkled with age, his 4 eyes clouded but still sharp with wisdom. The 27 representatives of the most powerful species in the galaxy watched as the eldest member of their council prepared to speak. "An urgent matter requires our attention," Zorax said, his voice stronger than his frail body suggested. "Our scout ships have detected unusual energy readings from a small yellow star in Sector 8. The primitive species there has developed faster-than-light technology far sooner than expected." Ambassador Krell of the Vexian Dominion flicked his tail impatiently. "Another newly spacefaring race. We have protocols for this. Why the urgency, Elder?" Zorax's upper eyes narrowed. "Because these are humans, Ambassador. The ancient texts warn us specifically about them." A wave of murmurs swept through the chamber. Most delegates exchanged confused glances or dismissive gestures. Few had ever heard of humans. "The records from 10,000 cycles ago speak clearly," Zorax continued. "Humans possess dangerous qualities unlike any species we've encountered. Their adaptability, their persistence, their capacity for both great violence and extraordinary cooperation, all these make them potentially unstoppable if challenged." Ambassador Krell laughed, a harsh sound that echoed in the chamber. "Forgive me, Elder, but these sound like superstitious tales to frighten younglings. All species believe themselves special until they join the assembly and learn their place in the greater order. You would be wise to heed the warnings," Zorax insisted. "The texts are specific about humans. They adapt to any environment, overcome any obstacle, and grow stronger from conflicts that would destroy other species." The assembly leader, High Counselor Mirren, raised a slender hand for order. "While we respect the ancient wisdom, Elder Zorax, we must base our decisions on current facts. What do we know about these humans now?" A holographic display appeared in the center of the chamber, showing a blue-green planet orbiting an unremarkable star. "They call their world Earth," explained Science Director Plex. "Their technology is crude but advancing rapidly. They've only recently developed rudimentary spacecraft capable of interstellar travel." "See?" Ambassador Krell gestured dismissively. "Nothing to fear. If anything, now is the perfect time to establish contact and guide their development according to assembly standards." Zorax slammed his ceremonial staff against the floor. "You are making a grave mistake. The texts warn that humans must never be underestimated or provoked." Many kilometers away from this debate, Captain Samantha Wright stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, Earth's first true interstellar vessel. The ship hummed with energy as the experimental drive powered up for its maiden voyage. "All systems report ready, Captain," said Lieutenant Eric Palmer from the navigation console. His fingers moved confidently over the controls, despite the historic nature of their mission. "Dr. Murphy, how's our engine holding up?" Samantha asked, turning to her chief science officer. Alan Murphy looked up from his data tablet and smiled. "Ready to make history, Captain. The modified drive should take us further than any human has ever traveled." Samantha nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. This was humanity's first real step into the stars. "All right, people. Let's show the universe what humans can do." Lieutenant Palmer engaged the drive. The Horizon shuddered slightly, then shot forward at impossible speed. Stars blurred around them as the ship tore through space faster than light itself. Back in the assembly chamber, the debate continued. "We should simply observe them for now," suggested Representative Tula of the Meridian Collective. "If they truly pose a threat, we can always take action later." Ambassador Krell shook his head. "Why waste resources watching primitives? I propose we establish contact and offer them limited assembly membership. This way we control their development from the beginning." Before Zorax could object again, an aide rushed into the chamber and whispered urgently to Science Director. "Plex, impossible," Plex exclaimed. "Are you certain?" The aide nodded frantically. Plex turned to the assembly, mandibles clicking in agitation. "We've just detected a human vessel approaching Outpost Station 12 in Sector 7. They've somehow developed faster-than-light travel that our sensors didn't predict. They're already here." On the horizon, alarms suddenly blared through the bridge. "Captain, I'm picking up an artificial structure ahead," Lieutenant Palmer reported, his voice tense with surprise. It's massive and definitely not human. Samantha leaned forward in her chair. On screen, the view screen showed an elegant space station shaped like a vast wheel with spokes extending from a central hub. Lights glimmered across its surface, and smaller vessels moved around it like bees around a hive. "My God," whispered Dr. Murphy. "We're not alone." "Yellow alert," Samantha ordered calmly. "Open all frequencies for communication. Let's not make any sudden moves." Within minutes, the horizon was approached by sleek ships with designs unlike anything humans had imagined. The bridge crew watched in amazed silence as the alien vessels surrounded them. "We're receiving a transmission, Captain," reported the communications officer. I think they're trying to talk to us." In the assembly chamber, chaos had erupted. Representatives shouted over one another as Zorax watched with grim satisfaction. "We must contain this situation immediately," Ambassador Krell demanded. "Send ships to intercept them before they can report back to their homeworld." "It's too late for that," Zorax said quietly. "The humans are already here, and you've done exactly what the texts warned against, underestimated them." High Counselor Mirren raised all four arms for silence. "We will establish peaceful contact. Ambassador Krell, you will lead the diplomatic team. Remember, these humans know nothing of galactic politics. They must be handled carefully." Krell bowed stiffly. "As you wish, High Counselor. I'll make sure these humans understand their proper place in the assembly hierarchy." Zorax shook his head sadly. "You still don't understand. The warnings weren't meant to protect us from humans. They were meant to protect humans from our arrogance." He turned and shuffled toward the exit. "When you realize your mistake, it may already be too late." As Zorax departed, the assembly returned to their planning, confident in their superiority over the primitive newcomers. Aboard the Horizon, Captain Samantha Wright prepared to make humanity's first contact with alien life. Unlike the assembly, she approached the unknown with respect rather than arrogance. "Whatever happens next," she told her crew, "remember that we represent all of humanity today. Let's make Earth proud." No one in the assembly or on the horizon could possibly predict how this meeting would change the galaxy forever. The humans were about to surprise everyone. Everyone except Grand Elder Zorax, who alone remembered the ancient warning, "Humans are unstoppable." 4 years had passed since first contact. Earth had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Gleaming towers of alien design now stood in major cities. Ships from 24 worlds visited the Sol system regularly. Humans had been granted observer status in the assembly, a political victory that Governor Lily Donovan had fought hard to achieve. Yet beneath the surface of cooperation, tensions simmered. Governor Donovan stood at the window of her office in the newly built Earth Embassy on the Assembly's central world. She watched alien ships of various designs move through the pink sky. A frown crossed her face as she reviewed the latest report from home. "They've denied our request again," she said to her aide. "The Assembly refuses to share gravitational displacement technology." "That's the 5th rejection this month," her aide replied. "They seem determined to slow our progress." Governor Donovan sighed. "They're afraid. They expected us to spend decades absorbing basic technology. Instead, we've built 3 colony worlds in 4 years." Back on Earth, in a secure facility beneath the Rocky Mountains, John Reeves hunched over a workbench covered with alien components. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he carefully connected the final circuit. Around him, a team of engineers watched in silence. "If this works," John said quietly, "we'll have shield technology 50 years ahead of the Assembly's development schedule for us." He activated the device. A soft blue glow emanated from it, expanding slowly until it formed a perfect dome over the test area. One of the engineers tossed a metal rod at the shield. It bounced off with a satisfying crackle of energy. The room erupted in cheers. John smiled but looked troubled. "They won't be happy about this," he muttered to himself. In another part of the complex, Dr. Michelle Hayes carefully examined tissue samples from 7 different alien species. Her research had revealed something fascinating. Human cellular structure possessed unique regenerative properties that most assembly species lacked. Even more interesting was human neural plasticity, which far exceeded that of the supposedly superior races. No wonder they're limiting our access to their medical technology, she told her colleague. They must suspect what I'm finding. In orbit above Earth, General Peter Morris inspected the newest addition to Earth's defense fleet. The ship wasn't large by assembly standards, but it incorporated human innovations that made it more maneuverable than anything the aliens had provided. How many can we build with current resources? He asked his aide. 20 within 6 months, sir. If we can get access to more rare metals from the asteroid belt. General Morris nodded. Make it happen, and keep it quiet. On the assembly homeworld, Ambassador Krell paced nervously in front of the Science Directorate. You assured me humans would take decades to assimilate our basic technology, he hissed. Yet they've colonized 3 worlds already, and reverse-engineered systems we deliberately withheld. Science Director Plex clicked his mandibles anxiously. Their adaptability exceeds all our models. They solve problems through intuitive leaps that our species approach methodically. What takes us a generation of careful study, they accomplish through trial and error. Grand Elder Zorax warned us, said a voice from the doorway. Both turned to see High Counselor Mirren enter the chamber. Perhaps we should have listened more carefully. Ambassador Krell straightened his ceremonial robes. The humans remain primitive in many ways. Their emotional responses make them unpredictable, potentially dangerous. I recommend stricter control measures. What do you propose? Asked Mirren. Technology, restrictions, limited space travel permits, and direct oversight of their colonial development. Krell replied immediately, as if he had been waiting for this opportunity. In the Earth Embassy, Governor Donovan received unexpected news. Grand Elder Zorax has requested a private meeting with you, her aide said, looking surprised. That's unprecedented. Hours later, in a garden designed to resemble ancient Zeralian landscapes, Governor Donovan sat across from the frail blue alien whose warnings had gone unheeded years before. You've surprised them, Zorax said without preamble. They expected compliance. Instead, they got humans. Lily smiled tightly. We're grateful for Assembly membership, Elder Zorax, but the restrictions placed on Earth are becoming problematic. The ancient alien nodded slowly. The Assembly fears what they don't understand. And humans, you are very difficult to understand. We just want to be treated as equals, Lily said. Ah, but that is precisely what frightens them, Zorax replied. The possibility that you might truly be their equals, or more, after only a few centuries of technological development when they have had millennia. He leaned forward. Be careful, Governor. Some in the Assembly are pushing for more direct measures to control human expansion. Meanwhile, in a restricted sector of space, the human science vessel Galileo drifted toward an unusual stellar phenomenon. Captain Frank Miller knew they were operating outside their permitted exploration zone, but the unusual radiation readings were too interesting to ignore. We'll just take some readings and leave, he told his science officer. No one will know we were here, but someone did know. Hidden near the stellar phenomenon, a Drakari patrol ship watched the human vessel with growing anger. The Drakari, reptilian and militaristic, had always been skeptical of allowing humans into the Assembly. They violate restricted space, growled the Drakari commander. Now we have cause to demonstrate our power. The Drakari ship emerged from hiding, weapons charged. On the Galileo, alarms blared. Drakari warship decloaking, shouted the sensor officer. They're charging weapons. Captain Miller remained calm. Open communications. Explain that we're on a peaceful scientific mission. But the Drakari commander had no interest in explanations. A warning shot blazed across the Galileo's bow. Return to Earth space immediately, the Drakari commander demanded. This sector is forbidden to humans. Captain Miller considered his options. The Galileo carried minimal weapons, designed more for clearing space debris than combat. Fighting was out of the question. Running seemed the only option. Prepare for emergency jump, he ordered. But first, deploy Research Probe Alpha. If we're being kicked out, we'll at least get the data we came for. As the probe launched toward the stellar phenomenon, the Drakari ship fired again, this time striking the Galileo's engine section. Direct hit, called out the engineer. Drive systems damaged. What happened next would change human-assembly relations forever. Rather than surrendering or begging for mercy, the crew of the Galileo worked feverishly to adapt their damaged systems, using an emergency protocol developed by John Reeves but never tested in actual combat. They rerouted power through secondary systems in a way no assembly engineer would have considered. The Drakari commander watched in confusion as the crippled human ship suddenly accelerated away, somehow managing faster than light travel with half its engine destroyed. When news of the incident reached the assembly, two facts caused uproar. First, that humans had violated restricted space. Second, that a small human science vessel had escaped a Drakari warship despite severe damage. Ambassador Krell seized the opportunity. You see? They cannot be trusted to follow our rules, and they possess military capabilities they've hidden from us. In the Grand Assembly Chamber, opinions hardened against Earth. Only Grand Elder Zorax spoke in defense of humans, but his was a lone voice. The Assembly voted for stricter measures against Earth and its colonies. Little did they know that these restrictions would not weaken humanity. They would only make them stronger. The sun rose over the human colony on Proxima Centauri b, casting long shadows across the settlement. Commander Laura Chen stood on the observation deck of the colony's main building, watching farmers tend to Earth crops now growing in alien soil. 6 years after first contact, this colony represented humanity's farthest reach into space. Laura's comm unit beeped urgently. "Commander, we're picking up multiple ships entering the system," reported her security chief. "Not scheduled assembly transports. Alert status," Laura ordered calmly. "Get all civilians to the shelters." Within minutes, alarms sounded throughout the colony. Families hurried to underground bunkers while defense personnel rushed to their stations. Laura strode quickly to the command center where screens showed 12 Drakari warships approaching. "They've bypassed our outer warning systems," said a young officer. "No response to communications." The first shots hit without warning. Energy weapons struck the colony's main power station, sending sparks and debris flying. The command center shook, lights flickering as backup systems engaged. "Return fire," Laura ordered, "and get me Earth Command immediately." The colony's defenses were limited. 3 small gun platforms and a magnetic shield that would not hold for long against a determined attack. They were never meant to repel a full military assault. In a maintenance bay near the edge of the colony, engineer Ben Martinez heard the explosions and saw smoke rising from the power station. He was alone with a dozen mining vehicles and equipment. Not a soldier, Ben had spent his life building things, not destroying them. But as the Drakari ships descended, something hardened in him. "They're not taking our home," he muttered, looking at the mining laser drill beside him. It wasn't a weapon, but it could cut through solid rock. With quick, practiced movements, Ben began modifying the drill, connecting it to a portable power source. On the lead Drakari warship, High General Vox watched the assault with satisfaction. "Minimal resistance, as expected," he told his officers. "These humans have no concept of real warfare." The Drakari had been fighting space battles for millennia. Their tactics were perfected, their weapons devastating. This mission, to subjugate the human colony and demonstrate assembly authority, would be over quickly. "Prepare ground forces," ordered Vox. "I want this colony under Drakari control within 3 hours." Back in the colony command center, Laura received the worst possible news. "Earth fleet is 2 days away at maximum speed," her communications officer reported. "We're on our own." Laura looked at the frightened faces around her. "Then we make those 2 days count. Activate all defensive protocols. We don't need to win. We just need to survive." In the assembly chambers across the galaxy, Grand Elder Zorax confronted Ambassador Krell. "You authorized this attack," the ancient alien accused, "without full assembly approval." Krell's tail flicked nervously. "The Drakari acted independently. But the humans need to understand their place. You fool, Zorax hissed. You've done exactly what the ancient texts warned against. You've threatened humans directly. A primitive colony with minimal defenses, Krell dismissed. The Drakari will secure it easily, demonstrating assembly authority. The humans will accept stricter controls after this. Zorax shook his head sadly. You still don't understand what you're dealing with. On Proxima Centauri B, the battle had taken an unexpected turn. The colony's defenses were failing as expected, but the Drakari ground forces had encountered something they hadn't anticipated: desperate human innovation. Ben Martinez had distributed his modified mining equipment to anyone who could use it. Drilling lasers reconfigured to penetrate Drakari armor, excavation charges repurposed as explosives, geological scanners rewired to detect Drakari life signs through walls. They're coming through Sector 7, Ben told a group of colonists who had refused evacuation. Their shields are calibrated against military weapons, not industrial equipment. When the Drakari soldiers breached the outer perimeter, they expected minimal resistance. Instead, they were met with mining lasers that cut through their armor, with surprising effectiveness. Colonists who had never seen battle fought with a ferocity that shocked the seasoned Drakari warriors. In the command center, Laura received unexpected news. The southern perimeter is holding, her security chief reported with disbelief. Martinez's people are actually pushing the Drakari back. What about the shields? Laura asked. Still failing. We've got maybe 20 minutes before they collapse. Completely. Laura made a quick decision. Divert all power from the shields to the communication array. We need to send everything we've learned about Drakari tactics and technology back to Earth. That will leave us completely exposed, the officer protested. It's not about saving this colony anymore, Laura said grimly. It's about making sure Earth knows exactly what we're facing. High General Vox watched in growing fury as the ground assault bogged down. How are they resisting? He demanded. They're farmers and miners, not warriors. His tactical officer looked confused. They're using modified industrial equipment. Our shields aren't configured to stop them. Enough of this, Vox snarled. Prepare orbital bombardment. Level the entire colony. As the Drakari ships repositioned for the killing blow, something unexpected happened. 3 of their vessels suddenly exploded, debris raining down through the atmosphere. What was that? Vox demanded. On his view screen appeared the face of Commander Laura Chen. That was our colony defense grid, she said calmly. Hidden underground since we built this place. We anticipated that someday someone might try to take what we've built. It was a lie. The explosions had come from Ben Martinez's team detonating the colony's geothermal taps, the resulting energy surge somehow interfering with Drakari shield harmonics. But Vox didn't know that. Withdraw your forces, Laura continued, or we'll target your command ship next. Vox hesitated. The mission was supposed to be a simple demonstration of power, not a prolonged battle, and he couldn't return to the assembly, having lost ships to a human colony. Tactical retreat, he ordered finally. We will return with proper forces. As the Drakari ships limped away, the colonists emerged from their shelters to survey the damage. Many buildings were destroyed, fields burned, and lives lost. But they had survived. Ben Martinez found Commander Chen in the ruined command center. They'll be back, he said simply. Laura nodded. Yes. But next time, we'll be ready. News of the battle spread quickly through assembly space. What was supposed to be a simple subjugation had turned into a humiliating defeat for the Drakari. More concerning to assembly leaders were the reports of how quickly humans had adapted mining equipment into effective weapons. In the Grand Assembly Chamber, Grand Elder Zorax addressed the stunned representatives. Now do you understand? This is only the beginning. The ancient texts warned us. Humans grow stronger from conflict, and you have just given them the greatest gift possible, a reason to unite against a common enemy. Ambassador Krell could not meet the elder's four-eyed gaze. What do we do now? Pray, replied Zorax simply, and prepare for the humans to do what they always do. The impossible. Across assembly space, the message was transmitted to all members. Earth and its colonies were to be contained, isolated, cut off from all assembly resources and support. A mistake had been made, and now the assembly would correct it through overwhelming force. Little did they realize they were about to face the full ingenuity of a species that had spent its entire history overcoming impossible odds. The isolation of Earth and its colonies was meant to weaken humanity. Cut off from assembly trade routes, technology, and resources, humans were expected to struggle and eventually submit to assembly authority. After 6 months, the opposite had occurred. President Diana Smith stood in the newly completed war room beneath Washington, D.C., surrounded by military and scientific advisors. Holographic displays showed the status of Earth's rapidly growing fleet and the position of assembly patrols around human space. "The blockade remains in place," reported Admiral Kyle Rodriguez, pointing to the red markers indicating assembly ships. "But their patrols are predictable. We can slip smaller vessels through their net." Diana nodded, her expression determined. "And our shipyards?" "Working at full capacity," Admiral Rodriguez replied. "We've converted manufacturing plants across Earth and the colonies. Every mining facility, every factory is now producing components." The door opened, and Dr. Olivia West entered, looking exhausted but excited. "It works," she said without preamble. "The new drive works." Everyone in the room fell silent. Dr. West's team had been working to improve the propulsion technology reversed engineered from assembly ships, but no one expected success so quickly. "How much faster?" Diana asked. 3 times faster than anything in the assembly fleet," Olivia replied with a small smile. "They restricted our access to their latest technology, so we built something better." Admiral Rodriguez let out a low whistle. "That changes everything." In a distant corner of human space, a small Earth vessel darted between asteroids, evading an assembly patrol. The ship, barely large enough for its crew of 3, carried precious cargo. Data from reconnaissance missions deep in assembly territory. Jake Turner had once been an Earth diplomat to the assembly. Now he used his knowledge of alien customs and protocols to gather intelligence. His small ship, the Ghost, slipped past assembly sensors by mimicking the energy signature of space debris. "Another successful run," his pilot said as they cleared the patrol zone. "The assembly still hasn't adapted their sensor sweeps." Jake nodded. "They don't expect us to understand their technology well enough to fool it. That's always been their weakness, underestimating us." The Ghost carried information vital to Earth's resistance. Detailed scans of assembly shipyards, patrol schedules, and most importantly, evidence of political fractures among assembly members. Not all alien species supported the isolation of Earth, and Jake had become skilled at identifying potential allies. On the Zoralian homeworld, Grand Elder Zorax meditated in his private chamber when a soft chime indicated a secure communication. Using ancient technology unknown to most of the assembly, he activated a holographic projector. The image of President Diana Smith appeared. "Elder Zorax, thank you for taking my call." "It is risky for both of us," Zorax replied. "The assembly monitors all communications with Earth." "Not this channel," Diana said. "Dr. West adapted technology from the ancient texts you provided. No one can detect this transmission." Zorax's 4 eyes blinked in surprise. "You continue to exceed expectations, Madam President." "We need to end this conflict," Diana said seriously. "The isolation of Earth cannot continue. Every day the risk of escalation grows." The ancient alien nodded. "I have tried to reason with the assembly, but fear has overcome wisdom. They see the reports of your technological advances despite the blockade, and it only confirms their worst fears." "Then perhaps it's time for a more direct approach," Diana suggested. "A demonstration that we cannot be contained, but also that we seek peace, not conquest." Across human space, preparation for this demonstration had already begun. In hidden shipyards orbiting distant moons and buried beneath planetary surfaces, a new class of vessel took shape. Smaller than assembly warships but incorporating human innovations, these ships could outrun and outmaneuver anything in the alien fleet. Admiral Rodriguez inspected the first completed vessel, the Defiance. Unlike the utilitarian designs of earlier human ships, the Defiance was sleek and elegant, incorporating lessons learned from studying alien architecture. "She's beautiful," he told the chief engineer. "How many can we deploy?" 50 within the month, came the reply, all with Dr. West's new drive system. Rodriguez nodded with satisfaction. "The assembly thinks they've contained us within our own solar system. Time to show them how wrong they are." In her laboratory deep beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Olivia West worked tirelessly on technology that went beyond anything the assembly had shared or expected humans to develop. Her team had taken basic concepts from alien science and pushed them in directions the assembly had never explored. "It's ready for testing," her assistant said, indicating a small device on the workbench. Olivia nodded. The device represented a communication breakthrough, a method of instantaneous transmission that would allow Earth's scattered forces to coordinate without delay. "If this works," she said quietly, "distance will no longer matter. Our ships will be able to act as one fleet regardless of how far apart they are." Meanwhile, in assembly space, Ambassador Krell addressed the Security Council. "The isolation strategy is working," he insisted, despite growing evidence to the contrary. "Our patrols have prevented any significant human expansion." An aide approached and whispered urgently in his ear. Krell's expression shifted from confidence to alarm. "What is it?" demanded the council leader. Krell hesitated. "We've lost contact with outpost stations in 3 sectors, simultaneously." Silence fell over the council chamber. Assembly outposts were scattered across dozens of light years. "Losing. Contact with 3 at once suggested a coordinated attack, something the humans should not have been capable of while contained in their own system." "How is this possible?" someone finally asked. Before Krell could respond, communication screens throughout the chamber activated simultaneously. The face of President Diana Smith appeared before the stunned council members. "Distinguished representatives of the assembly," she began calmly, "I speak to you directly because your leadership has denied our requests for dialogue. The isolation of Earth and its colonies ends today." Across assembly space, human vessels appeared simultaneously near 50 different worlds. Not attacking, not threatening, simply present, having bypassed the assembly's supposedly impenetrable blockade. On the Defiance, Admiral Rodriguez watched as assembly defense ships scrambled to respond to their sudden appearance. "Hold position," he ordered his fleet. "No aggressive actions unless fired upon." The Assembly Security Council erupted in panic. "How did they get past our blockade?" demanded one representative. "How are they broadcasting on our secure channels?" Ambassador Krell stood speechless. The impossible had happened. Humans had not just survived isolation, they had emerged stronger. President Diana's message continued. "We could have struck at assembly targets. Instead, we choose to demonstrate only our capacity for peaceful resistance. Earth proposes new negotiations, as equals not as subjects. Our ships will withdraw once dialogue is established." In his private chamber, Grand Elder Zorax watched events unfold with a mixture of concern and satisfaction. The humans had done exactly what the ancient texts predicted. They had adapted, innovated, and overcome. "Perhaps now," he murmured, "they will finally listen." Throughout assembly space, the message spread. The species that was supposed to be contained had instead achieved what no other race had managed in millennia of assembly rule. They had proven themselves unstoppable not through conquest but through sheer ingenuity and determination. The isolation had failed. The humans had survived. And now the assembly faced a choice: continue a futile conflict or acknowledge the truth that Grand Elder Zorax had warned them about from the beginning. The Grand Assembly Chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 27 advanced civilizations sat in stunned silence as they watched footage of human ships appearing simultaneously throughout assembly space. What should have been impossible had happened. A species less than a century into space travel had outmaneuvered the galaxy's oldest alliance. Ambassador Krell stood before his peers, his proud bearing now diminished. "We underestimated them," he admitted. The isolation did not work as expected. As I warned, Grand Elder Zorak said, his ancient voice carrying across the chamber. The humans adapted. They overcame. They learned and grew stronger from the very challenge we placed before them. High Counselor Mirren leaned forward. What options remain? If we cannot contain them, and military action seems unwise, what course does the Assembly recommend? Silence followed his question until Ambassador Krell spoke again. I volunteer to lead a diplomatic mission to Earth, to negotiate as equals. The words clearly pained him, but the images of human ships bypassing the Assembly's most advanced defenses left little choice. In Earth's new capital of New Geneva, President Diana Smith received word of the Assembly's decision with quiet satisfaction. Around the conference table sat humanity's leaders, military, scientific, and diplomatic. They're sending Ambassador Krell, reported Jake Turner, recently returned from his intelligence mission, the same one who supported our isolation. He'll try to limit our expansion, Admiral Rodriguez warned. They're still afraid of us. Diana nodded. Of course they are. We've done what they thought impossible. She turned to Dr. West. Are you ready for the demonstration? Olivia smiled. Everything is prepared, Madam President. 3 days later, Ambassador Krell's diplomatic vessel approached Earth. The ambassador stared through the viewscreen, expecting to see a world struggling under isolation. Instead, he saw orbital shipyards bustling with activity and new structures that hadn't existed before the blockade. Impossible, he muttered. His ship was escorted to a newly constructed space station. The design incorporated assembly architectural elements but with distinctly human modifications that somehow made it more efficient. Krell tried to hide his surprise as he was led through corridors to the diplomatic chamber. President Diana Smith waited, flanked by Admiral Rodriguez and Dr. West. Welcome to Earth Space, Ambassador, she greeted him formally. We appreciate the Assembly's willingness to talk. Krell performed the traditional Assembly greeting. The Assembly recognizes Earth's resilience. We are prepared to discuss terms for ending the isolation. Not terms, Ambassador, Diana corrected firmly. A new relationship, equal membership in the Assembly, open trade routes, and recognition of human space. Krell's tail twitched with agitation. Such demands are unprecedented. The Assembly has protocols for new species that must be followed. Those protocols were designed for species at early stages of development, Diana replied. Events have proven that humanity has moved beyond that stage. Before Krell could respond, Dr. West activated a holographic display. Perhaps a demonstration will help the Assembly understand our position. The hologram showed schematics for technology that made Krell's eyes widen in shock. Drive systems far beyond what humans should have been capable of designing. Energy generation methods that the Assembly had deemed theoretically impossible. Medical advances that even the oldest Assembly worlds hadn't achieved. How? Krell whispered. You gave us basic principles, Dr. West explained, but you restricted advanced applications, believing we would follow the same developmental path as Assembly species. She smiled. Humans don't work that way. We see problems differently. We make connections your scientists missed. Admiral Rodriguez stepped forward. This is not a threat, Ambassador. We're not showing you these advances to intimidate the Assembly. We're demonstrating why isolation and containment can never work against humans. Diana nodded. We want peace, Ambassador. Cooperation rather than conflict. But it must be as equals, not as subjects. Krell stared at the technological displays, his worldview crumbling. Everything the Assembly believed about developmental patterns, about the proper order of technological advancement, had been upended by these humans. The ancient texts were right, he said quietly. The elders warned us, but we wouldn't listen. In the days that followed, Krell was given tours of Earth's facilities. He saw how humans had turned the isolation into an opportunity, focusing inward, to develop technologies the Assembly had never considered. Most impressive was not the technology itself, but the speed at which humans had developed it. On the final day of his visit, Krell met with Grand Elder Zorax, who had traveled to Earth as an observer. They stood together in a garden designed to honor both Earth and alien plant life. "You knew this would happen," Krell said accusingly. Zorax nodded slowly. The texts were specific about humans. They spoke of a species that grows stronger when challenged, that sees possibilities where others see limitations. The warnings were not meant to fear humans, but to respect them. "The Assembly will resist full membership," Krell warned. "Many still fear what humans might become." "What humans already are," Zorax corrected. "And that is precisely why fighting them was always futile." 1 month later, the full Assembly convened to vote on a historic new galactic charter. President Diana Smith stood before the gathered representatives, the first human to address the complete Assembly as an equal. "Today marks a new beginning," she said. "Not just for humanity, but for all species who believe in cooperation over conflict, innovation over stagnation, and hope over fear." The vote that followed was not unanimous, but the majority prevailed. Earth and its colonies received full Assembly, membership with equal rights and privileges. Trade routes reopened. Cultural exchanges began. A new era dawned. As the celebrations continued, Ambassador Krell found himself standing next to Grand Elder Zorax. "I still don't fully understand them," Krell admitted. "How did they advance so quickly under isolation?" "Because that is what humans do," Zorax replied simply. "They adapt, they overcome. When you back them into a corner, they don't surrender. They find a new path forward no one else could see." "Will they become a threat to the Assembly?" Krell asked quietly. Zorax considered this. "Only if we make them one." The texts were clear on this point. Humans can be unstoppable enemies, but they can also be the most valuable allies. The choice was always ours. 5 years later, the impact of human innovation had spread throughout Assembly space. Medical breakthroughs from Dr. West's team extended lifespans on a dozen worlds. Human creativity combined with Assembly resources resulted in art, music, and literature that neither could have created alone. Ships built with combined technologies explored regions of space previously thought unreachable. In the updated archives of the Assembly, a new prime directive was entered. Never underestimate humans. They see possibilities where others see limitations. They find strength in adversity. They are unstoppable not because they cannot be defeated, but because they refuse to accept defeat as final. And throughout the galaxy, a phrase entered common usage across all species. When faced with an impossible situation, when all hope seemed lost, people would simply say, "The elders warned them about humans. No one listened." It had become the highest compliment one could receive.